Let's take that as the example here. There still is a little bit of drag. Now, if you're familiar with the drag equation, it's velocity squared. If you have a large amount of velocity, like 17,500 miles an hour, you square that, that's a really big number. So even just a little bit of resistance can give you enough drag that eventually the orbit will decay from atmospheric drag. Even though there's just little traces of it, there's still a little bit. You'll get lower and lower and eventually re-enter the planet, which is what happens. Sometimes some spacecraft will slow down enough and they'll come back into Earth. Usually they'll burn up in the atmosphere on re-entry, or if anything makes it through, it'll land in the ocean or someplace where people aren't around. So it typically isn't a problem, but that will happen. The only way to prevent that is to increase your altitude and go back up and give it a boost. So for example, when I visited the Hubble Space Telescope, we gave it a boost and it raised its orbit and it kept it up. We'll keep it up in space for a longer period of time. If you're on your way to another place, going to the moon or to Mars or something like that, it's going to be a little bit different. You would just need to coordinate your speed, use your fuel to maybe slow down to enter the orbit correctly, but you're not necessarily worried about the orbital decay that you would experience on Earth when you're not in orbit. If you're traveling somewhere else, then you do have to manage the fuel usage with not only with your straight trajectory, but when you encounter whatever the target is you're going to, you need some fuel to slow down and enter the orbit correctly. At Christo CS asks, do spacesuits fit well? Are they even remotely comfortable? As best as you can get them. You're not going to a tailor, but they do their job. I think they're adequate. Are they even remotely comfortable? Yeah, they're all right. You wouldn't want to wear one around town necessarily, but for what their function is and what they need to do to protect you, yeah, I would say they are comfortable. At Kayo Pajinkuk, hashtag Ask NASA. As an astronaut, how many languages do you have to learn to be able to communicate with the crews from other countries? It's not just English, right? That's true, it's not just English anymore. For going to the International Space Station, if you're gonna operate and work there as a NASA astronaut or as an astronaut from the European Space Agency or Canada or Japanese Space Agency or the Russian Space Agency, you need to be able to speak two languages. Because it's Russian, the Russian segment, the US segment. On the US segment, we speak English as the primary language. On the Russian segment, it's Russian. On the US side, you need it to be able to get along pretty well in Russian, and the same for the Russians in English. So yes, 2 languages required on the space station. At Christine12272 asks, my wife just turned to me and asked, baby, do you think space smells? I have no idea how to answer this question.